Coming up on the Men at the Movies podcast, we talk about the 1982 movie Tron. We see how the relationship between the programs and the users is a reflection of the relationship between ourselves and our creator. The MCP becomes a distortion of who he was created to be by his search for knowledge and power. But when we have a relationship with our creator and do the things we were designed to do, we experience a joy even in doing the hard things. Join us as we discover God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being.
Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me, not just in the Riverside studio, but on Facebook Live as well, Sarah Daniels. How are you tonight, Sarah?
Greetings, program.
She's slacking off this time. She did not finish the novelization, although she is wearing a Flynn's t-shirt.
I am, and I got my discs, my code discs.
You should have gotten a Frisbee and taped those on there or something. That would have worked.
That would have been cool.
She's got a little glow ring she's got for her identity disc. So, Sarah, tonight you selected for your 80s movie of choice. Have we done a non-80s movie yet? I feel like we did, but maybe we haven't.
Did we? I don't remember. Like, I feel like, let's see. No, well, we did Superman. That was from the 70s.
I'm looping that in
so
as 80s because it's 78.
Yeah.
And you've got the spreadsheet.
I know.
Sarah in her spare time put down all the podcasts and the guests and the guests so that she's like, I think she really just wanted to know her score.
I did. I want to know
how many times.
How many people have I beat to be on this podcast?
All right, so when you're going through the 80s movies that you wanted to pick, why did you pick Tron? What stands out to you about this movie? Why do you love this movie?
Okay, so great story. So you'll remember back last year when I did the little YouTube clip for E.T., okay? And I told you how my brother was obsessed with E.T. and how much I hated it growing up because I always had to watch it. And so the same thing happened with Tron, just to a slightly lesser extent. So this is the story. My brother and I, when we were growing up, there was like a mom and pop video store next to the grocery store that my mom would go every Saturday to go grocery shopping. And, it was the 80s. So she would leave us in the video store to just, poke around and hang out there while she was grocery shopping.
Your mom was nicer. My mom left me and my brother in the car. At least you got to go somewhere.
I guess she was nicer. Yeah. So the guy who ran the store was super nice. So he didn't mind. There was kind of like a little kids section in the back with like a little table and chairs. And he would put something he had one of those giant TV screens. Remember how they used to have the giant TV screens with like the projector lights that would project up. So he had one of those in the corner. So he'd let us pick out something and put it on and stuff. So my brother would rent. I was always going for the Disney classics, so I would go for like the big Disney clamshells, like Swiss Family Robinson, Pollyanna, Parent Trap. That's what I would go for growing up. My brother,
not the princesses.
Sometimes it depends. Depending on the mood I'm in. I tend more towards adventure. I think we all know this by now.
Yeah.
So my brother. Losing my hat, man.
You're losing your identity disc.
I know. So my brother did one of three things because there was apparently only 3 movies that he liked ever. So they were Tron, an animated movie called The 12 Tasks of Asterix, which is based off of like a German comic book or something. It's actually a pretty funny movie. And then the third one was a Disney movie that took place during the Civil War called The Great Locomotive Chase. So my brother would go in on a Saturday. He would rent, let's say, Tron, and then he'd bring it back the next week and rent it again. And then he'd bring it back the next week and rent it again, and so on and so on and so on. And he'd do this for like 3 months straight. And then finally he would get sick of Tron and he would move on to like Asterix. And then he would rent that for like 3 months straight. And then he'd move on to Locomotive Chase, same thing. And then he'd cycle back to Tron. He did this for years. And E.T. somehow was like outside of that rotation because, I remember, because that was the first VHS that we actually bought. And so we had that owned at home. I think my parents
you probably should have bought those 3 movies because you would have saved money.
I know, right? But I think my parents paid like $40 or something like that for an ET VHS. It was ridiculous. It was the first VHS we ever bought. He wore that thing to tatters. Actually, great video store story. So we were there one Saturday and we're in the back watching something, and and all of a sudden all these sirens, like these alarms start going off, and we're just kind of like, whatever, go back to whatever it is we're watching. Turns out while we're in the store, some guys came in and ripped the store off. There was a store robbery happening while we were there.
Oh my word.
And they had all these like VCRs and like video cameras in glass cases. I guess I honestly don't remember because I was not paying attention because my brother and I were so into whatever it was we were watching. But apparently they came in with like crowbars and just did like a smash and grab thing while the guy was, out back getting something. And so he came back, this is falling off. I'm just going to ditch it for now. And so, so the guy comes back, sees what happened. He's like, freaks out, calls the police. I just have this memory of the police coming over to me and my brother and asking us if we saw who, did this and what did the guys look like and did we see what they took? And my brother and I are like, what happened? And we're like, the guys that came in to rob the store. Oh, there was a store robbery? Really? When? Okay. So yeah, my mother comes in and there's broken glass and cops everywhere and stuff. And she's just like, what did you guys do?
Exactly. As all moms would. They're like, what have you done?
I know. We're like, we didn't do anything. We were just sitting here. So yeah, so that was funny. But yeah, so back then I didn't hate Tron as much as I hated E.T. just for being force-fed it. But it was like, that was one that kind of stuck with me because really it's a pretty cool movie, even with just the special effects, which again were like legendary for the time. If I remember correctly, Tron and The Last Starfighter were 2 of the first movies to use CGI extensively, in the movie. And I still think it looks cool. I mean, it's 40 years ago, but it still looks pretty neat. One of my favorite scenes is when they're first using the light cycles and like just the sound, with the CGI, and it's like, it's cool. I like it a lot. It's very well done. And then, Tron Legacy came out and they kind of, kicked it up a notch and stuff. And that was very cool too. I liked what they did with Tron Legacy. It's like they had enough callbacks to the original, that it was really like, hitting my nostalgia button, but the story was still fresh and stuff. So I'm very excited that they're finally decided to make a Tron 3. So I can't wait to see what they do with that. It's going to be great.
When's that coming out?
Probably not for a couple of years. Okay. I think like 2025, but they just announced it. I want to say back in the fall, I think, or something. Cause I saw an announcement for it on one of the movie sites that I check out regularly. I know Jared Leto's going to be in it, and I'm not sure who else, but I would love to. I know that Flynn's character died, but I'd love to see like Bruce Boxleitner in that again, as Alan Bradley and, some of those other people. If they had, I can't remember his name, but the guy who played Flynn's son, Sam, it would be cool if they brought him back, and Olivia Wilde as Quora. That would be fun. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what they do with it. I think it's going to be great.
Awesome. So Wait, you just described why you hated the movie.
And then I said, well, I liked it.
You never
I said,
actually. Oh, because of the. It was like a fungus. It grew on you.
But not in a creepy Last of Us way, you know.
Yeah, I'm only halfway through that show.
Oh gosh, I am only 2 episodes into it, and I'm like, I hope it gets better, because it was depressing. So I'm like, I hope it gets better.
So far, it hasn't.
I guess I'll have to get back into it at some point.
I mean, I've only watched like 4 episodes.
Oh, okay. So. Well, but yeah, so what else do I like? I like the character of Flynn. I think the character of Flynn is terrific. I mean, he's young Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges, like when he was really in his prime, you know, like doing this movie. And he was a cool nerd before nerds were cool. You know, and stuff. And, you know, he owns a video game arcade. You know, he's kind of just like this laid back hacker dude. You know, he's funny. Yeah, I just thought he was a terrific character. I really liked him. In the sequel, he gets kind of like, I mean, obviously he's older, but he gets more like, I'm trying to think of the right word. It was almost as if they had the dude playing Flynn. You know, like an old dude playing Flynn, like, you know, you're really harshing my Zen thing, man. You know, it's just
yeah. When we do The Big Lebowski, we'll make sure we're going to be drinking White Russians that time.
Yeah, totally.
I'll probably wear a robe.
Get a rug.
So I think it's one of those movies that if you haven't seen it before and you watch it now, you'll be like, it kind of sucks. And here's what I'm saying, because the CGI is it's dated, but because I think this is one of those movies where it set the standard for other movies. Like I didn't watch Heat for years until like I think when we did it earlier this year or late last year. And when I watched it, I was like, I've seen this already in different movies. So it wasn't as groundbreaking to me because I didn't watch it when it first came out. Well, and I think the same thing with Tron of this idea of inserting somebody into a video game and like when he gets lasered and disappears, like that was back in 82. That's a pretty cool thing. So I think if you take that approach of looking back at it as this was one of those movies that paved the way for other movies, I think is one of the ways to look at it. One of the interesting things about this movie is how they reflect the relationship between user and program. And we see this early on when we see one of those sort of seek and destroy programs that Flynn has written to go find this secret file. And we don't know for a while what this folder is. And so the little synopsis of the movie is Jeff Bridges' character, Flynn, got fired from this big tech company, and we don't know why. We just know that he's sort of on his way out. He's looking for some file. He's looking for some folder that we come to find out that when he was programming, he made these video games. One of his partners there that worked with him stole the folder. So don't, the lesson there is don't put your stuff on the cloud that you don't want stolen. And the guy sold those 5 video games as his idea, as his creation. And so Flynn is trying to find proof that that those are actually his creation and take the credit, discrediting Dillinger. And then the other 2 characters, Laura and Alan. Laura's a former girlfriend who's now dating Alan because of course they were. And so they sort of gang up together to find the missing file. But also we see when we look at Dillinger, he's sort of become under the control of the master control program, the MCP that they'll call it. And this used to be a chess program. And what it's done is it's gotten a desire for more and more programs. And as he sort of absorbs the programs, he grows stronger. And to the point now, he's telling Dillinger what to do, which is a reversal of what normally happens, where the programs typically, I'm not a computer programmer. I have friends who are, so they can probably explain it a lot better than me. But the programmer writes the program, and then the program does what the user told it to do. It can only do what is written in. You know, the whole garbage in, garbage out. If you write a garbage program, it's going to be garbage on the outcome. So when we look at the programs in the computer world, in the digital world, all look like their user, their programmer. You know, Flynn's program that he wrote, Clue, to go hunt down the file, the person who drives the tank looks like him. Tron, who Alan, the computer program Alan wrote, looks like Alan. And so the program Laura wrote looks like Laura, and that's called Yori. But this idea that the creation reflects the image of the creator. You know, in when you're looking at the user, and in the terms of the movie, the user, the programmer, pour themselves, their personality, who they are, into the program that they wrote. And this is where Sarah and I would normally go back and forth talking about how that applies. But she's currently trapped in the game grid. She's got to go see the IO tower so she can communicate with us. And what we see with the MCP is similar to what happens in the fall, where the program wants to become as great as or greater than the user. He decides that what he's written, how he's been written, isn't enough. He has to grow. He's grown thousands of times smarter. And isn't that what happened in the Garden of Eden? Where Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They grew in their knowledge of good and evil, sort of. But what they did was they mixed up their roles. They were not designed to work that way. We weren't designed to work this way in a fallen world. We were designed to work under certain guidelines. I think C.S. Lewis compared us to a car, where he said a car is made to work on petrol, because he's British, so petrol. And it doesn't work if you put water in the tank or anything other than gas. And we weren't made to work in the absence of the Spirit of God. And so what we see is, as the MCP seeks knowledge, seeks control, seeks more power, it distorts everything around him and puts all the other programs into slavery.
The recognizer almost got me, man. It's that close. I had to use my light cycle like you would not believe, but I got out of there. So, damn MCP. You missed it, man. Like, I totally went, what? Because the laser got me in the back. It was nuts.
First your finger disappeared, and then your other hand.
Yeah, I just got disintegrated. It was crazy. So, but you sounded great. I was listening to you on my phone.
At least we got that going for us.
We do. But I loved what you were saying about how each of the programs resembles their user, because that's totally, like, we bear God's creative DNA, like we have his stamp on our lives. And, so he, it says numerous times in the Bible, like how we are, we look like God, we're his children, and stuff. So we're made in his image and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Well, and when you look at the MCP, he does have a face, but it's been distorted. Mm-hmm. His true image has been lost in his search for power, for knowledge, for wisdom, for I can't say he's pursuing wisdom. He just wants to know more. He wants to break into the Pentagon and the Kremlin just because he can.
Yep.
And
yeah, in the novelization, he's basically talking about how he pretty much wants to take over the world.
Right. Well, and I think we talked about this when I did 2001 with Mike. This idea that from a rational standpoint, computers probably could run the world more efficiently. But then you're talking about the whole Thanos thing where, yeah, you know what? The world probably would be a little better if half the people were gone, just because the demand on resources wouldn't be so bad and all this and all that, you know, from a strictly conceptual, rational standpoint, there's a way to do things that none of us would like, because it's cold, hard, you know, nobody would be living in nursing homes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then you have to think like, okay, you can run the world more efficiently. Well, like, what kind of a world would that be then? You know, it's almost like it's talking about AI. It's like Skynet, with the Terminators.
Exactly.
Skynet became self-aware and realized that, like, it doesn't need humans anymore. So let's just get rid of them because they're just, standing in my way and taking up space. Man, AI is scary. This is why I don't understand why everybody's like so excited about AI these days. AI is bad, people. That's where Terminators come from.
Right. Haven't you watched literally any movie about AI?
Right? It's like
this never ends well for us.
No, my friend Stacy and I were laughing the other day because we weren't even talking. We were texting. Okay, we were texting on the phone, and we were talking about Skyrim, and she was talking about Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and she was talking about how she's got a Nintendo Switch and she plays it on that. And I mentioned how I was looking at a Steam Deck, and finally decided no, because I don't think it's a good idea for me to be mobile with Skyrim because I played enough already. So, but anyway, so then she texts me like an hour later with a screenshot going, Amazon just recommended a Steam Deck to me. She's like, they're listening. And I'm like, it's Terminators.
Right. Right. That's how it's like the invasion of privacy. But hey, that's exactly what I wanted. And look at that. Now it's on sale.
I know, right? Amazon Prime Day starts tomorrow.
Are we that predictable?
Everybody.
Are we that susceptible to ads? I guess so.
So anytime anybody posts anything about AI now, I just usually will comment Terminators, people.
This is how they get born.
This is how it gets starts. One of the other things that I was thinking of was how all of these programs that the MCP is taking over, if he finds them useful, he absorbs them and makes them part of himself. But if they don't have anything useful, then he sends them down to the game grid to be destroyed, playing games. So either way, he's getting rid of them. He's getting them out of his way. But I was thinking about all of these programs that were never made to play video games. They were never made to do anything except what their purpose was. And RAM was an actuarial program for an insurance company, and that one in the beginning, Tron, he was owned by a bank manager, or something. And so there's all these little data analyzing programs that were never really meant to do this, video game stuff. And that just kind of just made me think about how, God created us specifically to do something, whatever your gift and talent is. God created you to do that with him and to run wild with it, to have that creativity and be free and, imitate God in that he creates us and then we create other things, and so to have that creativity, line keep going. And that's another thing that Tron brings up in the novelization is that he can't imagine doing something that's not in the service of users, because he's like, that's what I was created for, to to be of service to my user, which is a little bit more religious, than what we have with God. But I liked his thought. I liked where he was, going with it.
So yeah, when I think it was Ram was talking about, he actually got joy from doing his work, the work he was programmed for. And you mentioned earlier you mentioned the trip to Uganda, probably not on the podcast. So,
oh yeah, that was before we started.
But so I went to Uganda earlier this year, and typically I've been going as a nurse on a medical mission trip, and this year it was to capture film, to capture footage, to say, hey, this is the work we do, and here's the impact that we are having, that the kingdom is having over there through the work that we're doing, and say, hey, why don't you partner with us? And and so what I did was I got a lot of film around the clinic, but I also got people talking about both patients, volunteers, Ugandan leaders. And I talked with one guy. He's a physician here in the US. He and my brother went to med school together, and I was laughing because he lives down in Birmingham. And I was like, dude, I've seen you more in Uganda than I've seen you here in the States. And you're like not that far away. And so I was asking him, I was like, tell us about the clinic. Why do you do it? This and that. And he said, we think that serving God should be hard work. We should hate it. We should be, kind of sourpussing about him. Oh, I'm working hard for the Lord.
Drudgery.
Yeah, we should dread it, right? And he's like, it's, to me, and we joke because we're like, the hardest part of the thing is the travel. Once you get there, everything's great. It's compared to the actual trip, the medical clinic's easy, especially for, guys like him, who's like, he's a physician. He sees patients. That's what he does. And it's not tremendously different from what he does every day, but how he does it, because he's, asking almost every patient, can I pray for you? He's sharing the gospel. He's reflecting the love of God to these people who are in desperate need. And he's like, I feel guilty for enjoying this so much. He's like, I enjoy being here. He's like, when I ask him about, hey, what would you say to somebody who comes? He's like, well, I would tell them, don't do it, because if you come here once, you'll come every year because you love it. You enjoy it. It's like, he's like, I don't understand why people say they don't want to come, because it's like when I offer them, it's like if I offer to take you to Ruth Chris Steakhouse for a delicious meal, why would you say no? And I'm asking you to come join me on this mission where we get to love on people. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? It's just like going to Ruth Chris. And so we see that, I think, even in Tron, where he gets joy from doing the stuff that he was programmed to do, that he was put on Earth to do. Right?
Yeah. When Tron is at the input-output tower, and he's finally able to communicate with his user, Alan 1, and he's so excited and just like so full of joy, because he's said, a few times throughout the movie, he's like, Alan 1 is calling me. He's like, I need to go and talk to him. Can I pass? Can I approach the tower? Alan 1's calling me. He wants me to talk to him. And I just thought that was so neat, because that's what God does to us, like again, in the Psalms, it's like, Lord, my heart is, I've heard you call my name, and my heart responds, Lord, I'm coming, and God calls us into that intimacy. He wants to talk to us and stuff. And so Tron, I like I said, when I was reading the book earlier, he's it's such a wonderful like mixture of awe that he's talking to his creator, and I think, I don't know, I guess it depends on your relationship with God and where you're at. But I mean, sometimes I know that like I can kind of take talking to God for granted, cause I'll just be like, oh God, I can't believe that guy just did that. Did you see him? Or something like that. Or I can be very casual with it, which, like when we were talking about Lady Hawk, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But then, it's also good to remember that this is the God of the universe who created you and everything, and he deserves to be held in a place of awe and respect and honor. It should blow your mind that you're talking to God. It should blow your mind that you are talking to the God of the universe and that he takes time out to listen to your petty little problems, and it's fun. It kind of reminds me of like a dad, talking to a little kid when they're like, dad, 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 dad.
Yeah. My son was doing that with his daughter was doing that the other day. He and I were trying to have a conversation and she's like, Dad, I want to talk to you. Dad, I want to talk to you. And he looked, he's like, we just spent like 4 hours together. What more do you need? It's like, what score do you need to win this game? It's like they were playing a little kids foosball. But this idea, like, and I learned unfortunately very late in my fathering that kids will take as much attention as you give them and will always demand more. Your attention will never be enough. And I feel guilty sometimes, feeling so needy. It's like, God, this bothered me. God, I don't know what to do. That idea, I should be able to handle this better. And yet I still find myself acting like my granddaughter, being like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this really what you put me on earth to do? Or am I making wise choices? Should I be doing this? Whether it's, getting a new tuition bill from my son's college, or whether or not we should go out for dinner, or all these little things. And again, sometimes I think, I'm going back to the whole joy idea. Like, I think we think the Christian life should be drudgery. We think it should be hard. But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus didn't say, come to me, all you are happy and lighthearted, and come get weighed down by religion. Come get weighed down by my requirements. And he's like, no, you'll find rest for your souls. And who doesn't want rest? Who doesn't want peace? Who doesn't want joy? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he also says, if you want to follow me, you have to pick up your cross. You have to die. It's like, again, I like exploring a lot of these tensions. So this tension between, and you see the joy in Tron receiving the command. He's like, here's the key to freedom is you got to take this disc and go stick it up MCP's butt. Basically, that's basically what he had to do. They just didn't have the graphics to do that back then. Which was not an easy thing to do, right? He had a lot of battles along the way.
Yep. He did.
But
had a lot of sacrifice along the way.
Yeah, it was hard. It was challenging. There was uncertainty. But it's both that tension of this is what we're doing is easy, brings us joy when we're doing what we were put on earth to do. And also the stress of the actual doing it. Like I said, you can we enjoyed the mission trip. I enjoyed capturing video, going around, talking to all these people. And the end of the day, I'm like, I'm exhausted because hearing all these people's stories of trauma, of loss, of how to survive in that environment, like it weighs on you because you're like, I'm just doing a video. I'm not like actually helping them directly. And that weighs on you because you're just like, I can't believe, like when you hear somebody's actual story, it should break your heart. Because if you get to know somebody truly and share their actual who they are, it's it's an honor, but it's also heavy because you see that person and all that they've been through. And it's really a miracle any of us are here today.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, again, like the reason I feel like Tron goes through all of that, stress and why it's worth it to him is because he has this relationship, with his user, and he sees those people, those other programs around him who don't have that, like they've been told by the master control program and Sark and everybody that the users don't exist, that they're all on their own and that they just are there to slave for the MCP, basically.
By the way, that's not what we hear at all in the world today, is it?
No, not at all.
God doesn't exist. We're on our own. It's all just make it up as you go.
But not only does Tron refuse to believe them, he like legit knows better because he's talked to his user. He has a relationship with him. So not only is he being obedient to what his user wants him to do in destroying the MCP, he would do it anyway, I feel like, because he just wants everybody to have that lie broken off of their lives and for all of these programs to understand that they can have a relationship with their users like he has with his. And in fact, at the end of the movie, when he finally does defeat the MCP, there's that line like, look at all of the input-output towers are lighting up because all of the programs are going to communicate with their users, and stuff. And so I like that. I thought that was really great because that's our mission as Christians, to break the lies off of people and to let them know that, that there's a God that loves them and wants to talk with them and wants us to talk to him and, and to have relationship, and that, that we're not alone, that we're not just here to slave, for the man, quote unquote, or the woman, whatever.
No, it's always the man. There's an interesting contrast there too, because on the one hand, you've got, Sark at the MCP saying there's no user there. Basically, there's no God. You're on your own. There's nothing outside of what you see. Nothing exists outside of what's in front of you. But we can also find ourselves in slavery to the religious constructs, to legalism, to the people that say, I don't hear from God. I don't talk, who don't have a relationship with their user. When you don't have a relationship, you do question whether they exist or not. Like Tron never questioned it because he knew. And the same thing with Yori, and even Clue before he blew up. Like they knew their user and had a relationship, a conversational relationship. And so much of when like the religious spirit looks at the Bible and say, these are heroes of the faith. These are people that we'll never be like. These are examples of great people. Well, until you actually read it and you're like, these dudes are a mess. I mean, Game of Thrones has nothing on the Bible. And what is, oh man, I think I can't remember who it says. I'll put it up for our show notes, our website, but it's in one of the epistles who said, Elijah was a man just like us. And here it is, Paul or James or Peter, he's writing to the church. And, Elijah was the greatest prophet. Like they thought John the Baptist was Elijah. They thought Jesus was Elijah. Come back. He's like, Elijah was a man just like us, which means he's also a person just like us. So and what does Jesus tell them that, you look at all the work, the stuff, the miracles and all the stuff the prophets did. He's like, what they did is nothing compared to the least in the kingdom after Jesus, because they get to know Jesus. They get the Holy Spirit, which the guys in the Old Testament didn't. So we actually have more access to God. We can have a closer relationship to God than David, than Elijah, than Elisha, than Moses, than, Joseph, take your pick, all the sort of the heroes of the faith of the Old Testament. We actually get communication because we have there's no temple. There's no Holy of Holies. There's no tabernacle. The temple is in us.
Yeah.
Like God lives in us. We have that the IO tower is constant. We just have to use it.
Yeah. Yep, it's there. It's wide open. Because Flynn is definitely sort of the Christ figure in this movie that talks a lot about religion. They even bring I think Dillinger brings up, he's like, I've got better things to do than to have religious discussions with you. But
right?
So Flynn is because imagine from the viewpoint of the programs, Tron and Ram, and all of a sudden there's a user who's come down among them who looks like him, just seems like a regular ordinary program. But then all of a sudden they realize that, wow, he can do miracles. He can put a recognizer back together. He can divert energy, with his arm, and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And so they're kind of like, wow, I think there's more to this guy than meets the eye. And and so
he's a transformer.
Okay, I'll give you that one. But I think that there's a super funny line when they're on the solar sailor and Tron's going to Flynn. He's like, so if you're really a user, then everything that you've done has been according to a plan, right? And Flynn's yeah, not so much. But it is funny because, I mean, obviously Flynn was just a human being, but it kind of speaks to the way that, we look at God, well, everything that God does is according to a plan, and but again, it speaks to that level of trust that Tron has in his user, Alan 1, because Alan 1 has a plan. Alan 1's going to help him bring down the master control program. Alan 1 is way and above, outside the situation, knows what's going on, has the bigger picture, more than Tron. That's why Tron's like, I'm just going to do whatever you want me to do. Just, tell me what to do and I'll go do it. But yeah, anyway, so getting back to Flynn, he even brings he brings Yori back to life, she's starting to de-res and he brings her back to life. And then he kind of resurrects himself, back to the human world, because in the computer world, he throws himself into the MCP and, pretty much dies. But then he comes back to the human world, the real world, and he's Kevin Flynn again, and stuff. So.
Well, and any sort of Jesus analogy will at some point always fall apart or de-res.
Yes.
So, I mean, it does work. But like you said, here's a guy who looks like the programs, but he's not. He is an actual user. He is the creator. They're sort of made flesh, sort of digital flesh. But he enters in, and like you said, he can do stuff and he can see things. And it was just, I thought a really powerful image of, that's sort of what Jesus did, was he entered our world. We think of that religious idea that Jesus sort of walked around and his robes were always white and, he never had to poop and everything he did, he was just, always just no, he's a person.
Yeah.
He was a human being. He, as I think I've said before, is if we look at Jesus as Mr. Rogers, nobody wants to kill Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
He was dynamic, charismatic, compassionate, loving, all the things that make up anybody who you would follow. I mean, you don't show up and it's not just the miracles. It's who he is that makes him a desirable person to follow. And we see that, you sort of see that with Flynn of he engages the people around him. He cares for them. He fights for them. He leads them to freedom. He's like, oh, I got to get out of here, because he knows the way to find freedom.
Yeah. And the bad guys think that they can defeat him, they think that they can take him down and, oh, we'll just throw him on the game grid and let him get killed, and stuff. And he's not going to be a big problem, for us and stuff. And that backfires.
The game grid of the games that he designed.
Exactly. I know that blew my mind how they thought that they were going to. So sorry, go ahead.
No, what you were just saying is something I was thinking about earlier. The mindset of the enemy of Satan when Jesus went to the cross. Like why was that the goal? But what joy he would have had saying, I made your people, the people that you have watched over for centuries, they have rejected you. They are calling for you to die. These people that you poured your heart out, you've done this, you know, all through the basically the Old Testament, right? These are your people. And now, not just are they, you know, chasing other gods, they are actually wanting you to die. Like the delight that the enemy must have had at that moment where he feels like he has victory. And the shock that he must have had very soon after.
This is not what I meant to happen at all.
That's why we look at stories like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where there's the older magic that Aslan talks about, and even this. But you see that, but that's what we talk about. The movies that we love, the scenes that resonate with us resonate because they echo the gospel. And even in this one, Flynn he jumps into the power core into MCP's head. I don't know, to distract him so that Tron can complete the mission, so that he could get the disc in, because Tron's about to die. So in a lot of ways, he sacrificed himself for the freedom of the programs.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, he gets spit out and undigitized, and then the dot matrix printer prints out that Dellinger stole his ideas.
Yeah.
It's sort of like my wife's favorite movie is Xanadu, which is
oh my gosh, wow,
disco movie about how the muses, the Greek muses, inspire someone to open a disco roller rink. I was like, really? It's like, you did all this just to say, hey,
ELO, baby, Electric Light Orchestra.
like you the whole movie, it wasn't, yeah, you took out the MCP, but your core desire was just to say, I actually did this. I actually wrote those video games. I should be running Enron or Encom or whatever the name of the...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just to go back a minute for like when you talk about how he wrote all these video games, I can't believe that the Master Control program thought that it was a good idea to put the creator of all of these video games into the video game to try to kill him. That would be like, I'm going to kill Sarah, so I'm going to throw her into a movie trivia contest. You know?
Well, if you really want to start dissecting the movie from that perspective, I get it why you want to absorb the useful programs. But is there like a side gambling thing going on with the gamers? Or like, it's not like the Roman Colosseum where they're like looking for blood. Like, who's cheering? Who's spectating? Who cares about the game grid other than like it's just a weird...
Well, I mean...
It sort of goes down that concept rabbit hole.
I guess if you want to get technical, the people playing the video games in the arcade are the ones who are cheering.
But are they playing against the people in the arcade? Is that what happens?
I don't know. All I know is that there's...
I think that... Okay, because that actually would make sense.
Yeah.
Like if they're like, okay, you're the next Respawn NPC... You're going to go in there and die. You're a first level noob. So you're going to play this. You're going to, this guy's going to put a quarter in the video game and kill you. And he's just thinking it's there was that one scene where it was Pac-Man, right?
There was an Easter egg Pac-Man.
Where was that?
There was a little Pac-Man in one of the times when Sark is talking to the MCP and his little thing that looks like a joystick, which is super funny. And he's like talking, and you see in the corner of the screen, there's a little Pac-Man figure in there. which is
So
hilarious.
yeah, because I was like, wait, I hear the waka 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 waka, and there was a Pac-Man in the background.
Yep. That's one of the Easter eggs. Actually, I'm frankly really surprised that it's in there. I wonder, like, how did they have to like pay copyrights to put Pac-Man in there, because it's quite obviously Pac-Man. It's not like they just happened to like make a random geometric design or something. It's definitely Pac-Man. There's actually a hidden Mickey Mouse face in the Solar Sea when they're taking the Solar Sailor over there. If you look down at the bottom the grid, there's a Mickey Mouse face.
There's a hidden Mickey.
There is. There's a hidden Mickey.
When we went to Disney World for my brother's 40th birthday, he got one of the hidden Mickey books so that we could go find all the hidden Mickeys. And so like for months after we went, we'd see things, we'd take a picture of it, hidden Mickey. I found a hidden Mickey bird poop. All right, Sarah, anything you want to, as we wrap this puppy up?
I can't think of anything else. I mean, the only one more thing that I would add is that, I had put in my notes that this movie is just another example of how there's more below the surface that we don't see, and that it's a story that echoes the great ultimate story. Yeah,
this is sort of, to me, we've talked with Corey, we talk about Pixar movies, and Pixar movies are basically, what if blank had, sorry, Brian, I'll make sure there's a hole in the box when we wrap up the puppies. But Pixar movies are basically, what if blank had feelings? What if toys had feelings? And even what if feelings had feelings?
Yeah.
This movie is basically like, what if computer programs had feelings?
Yeah.
So this was like a Pixar precursor.
Yeah.
If we didn't have Tron, we might not have Pixar.
You're right. Well, I mean,
you never know.
Apparently Pixar wasn't cheating when they used computer animation for their special effects. Tron didn't get nominated
that was 20 years later.
Tron didn't get nominated for an Oscar because the Academy said that using computers to create special effects was cheating.
What did they get nominated for?
It was a costume.
Oh, best
costumes?
Best costume design and best sound.
It did have really good sound. It's got very good sound.
Okay, sound, but not soundtrack, right?
Well,
there's sound design.
Soundtrack, we got to give it up to the sequel, man, and Daft Punk. The soundtrack to Tron Legacy is sick. That is just awesome. It is. It's great. It's a really good soundtrack.
You're referencing a movie I have no recollection of other than seeing Jeff Bridges in it and being surprised.
Oh, really? You did? Oh, I was going to say, have you not seen Tron Legacy? Because it was decent. I liked it.
Once years ago.
Really? See,
like when it came out.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a true.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just don't remember much about it.
Well, it's on Disney Plus.
Other than it looked very much smoother.
Well, like I said before, like I was saying before we started, it's a great sequel because it had enough, like callbacks to the original and like little Easter eggs and stuff that it was really, pushing my nostalgia button good. Cause I went to go see it with my brother. Cause I'm like, Ryan, we have to go see this movie. It's like, it's a Tron sequel. We have to. So he and I went to see it.
Was your brother like, nah, I don't know if I want to go?
He was into it and stuff. We both really liked it, but we're sitting there and it's funny because we're both watching it and we're going, oh my God, that was like oh, that's a reference to the beginning to the first one. Oh, that's from the first one, like all kinds of stuff in that, but it was good. But so yeah, it had a great, callbacks to the original, but the story was fresh. The special effects were great. The soundtrack was awesome. So it was good. Like it was a really good sequel. I thought that it's hard sometimes when you've spaced out your sequels like that to get a really good sequel, but it's like Top Gun Maverick. I mean, that was an amazing sequel. So it can be done. Just if you're not just looking for a cash grab.
So Sarah, what do you have to plug? Obviously, this is the birthday week.
Yeah.
This is not going to air your birthday week, but what's going on with your birthday week of Forged in Film?
Yeah, so 1 year ago, tomorrow, actually, I posted my first blog post on Forged in Film. And I mean,
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so this week, I decided to have a blog birthday party. and just celebrate 1 year on the interwebs. And since they're watching, I have to give it up to Troy and Stacy Hooker, because they were...
Give it up for the hookers!
Descendants Publishing, woohoo!
The hookers are the best.
Hookers are the best. I love hookers. But no, last year, obviously, okay, so this time last year, I was obviously in a really difficult place. My mom had died, a month and a half earlier, and, I was I was a wreck. My life was just a mess at that point. And I had the idea to start a blog, and I just obviously had kind of lost motivation for it. But Troy and Stacy were amazing, because there was like, no, we need to make sure that this still happens. Let's keep this going. And there was, Stacy got me hooked up with a guy through Fiverr who gave me that amazing logo that I just love. It's just the coolest logo ever. Troy put together my whole website. For me, he's been great. Like, he's been kind of my webmaster. He's been posting all the posts for me, and, making sure the site's functional and working and everything's good with it. So they've just both been really awesome. But I mean, there were times last year where I would try to like backpedal out of it and just be like, no, you know what, you guys, I don't think this is going to work right now. Maybe I'll just put it off till later. And this was right before Realm Makers, when they've got their own stuff that they need to be doing. Like they've got, like, they were, publishing Brian's book.
Shout out to the hookers and Descendant Publishing.
Yeah, and Brian Mitchell, their publishee. So they were trying to promote
Published.
Published, yeah. So they were trying to like promote him and his book. And so they've got a bucket load of their own stuff. But Troy's like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to get it done. I want you to be able to promote this at Realm Makers. And I'm like, all right.
That's a terrible Troy impression. He doesn't sound anything like that.
I'm sorry. I just, my background's in trivia, not impressions. So can't do it. He knows I love him though. But yeah, so anyway, so they've just been incredibly awesome and amazing, and I love them, and I can't wait to see them in a couple of days. So that's going to be great. But yeah, so it's just been a really awesome year, because I mean, at first, I very early in the blog, I'd only done like a couple of posts, and, you kind of, as a blogger, as with, I think, anything that you do online, whether you write books or whatever, you're like, is anybody going to even look at this? Is anybody reading it? And I've decided very early on that I was, can't say I do it all the time, but I was going to try not to care about things like, like how many people are reading it and is it even getting noticed? Because I really felt like God, this sounds so funny, but it's like God made me to show him to people that might not normally see it. And one of the ways he's chosen to do that is through movies. I tend to pick up on God speaking through movies, and it's like scavenger hunting with God, like, where's Waldo in a movie? Where's God in a movie? And I've just been able to pick him out, like, for a while now. It's just something that he's gifted me to be able to do. And if I can write down those thoughts and what he shows me, and one person reads it and gets excited because they're like, oh, wow, I love that movie, and I never, ever realized that about that before. I'm going to go back and watch it again. If that's encouraging to one person, then that's great. And I have literally changed the world by changing this one person's life, because it's like, throwing a pebble in a pond. You don't know where those rings are going to go and what they're going to intersect and hit, with one thing. That's one thing I always try to tell, especially like author friends, because, as an author and a creative in general, you're always like, oh, is what I'm doing even, does it even matter? Is it even speaking to anybody? And it's like, I
don't know what you're talking about. I've never had those thoughts ever.
But it's like, we don't know, because we can't see it. We can't see that big picture, but God does. So I always like to have the perspective that if you've encouraged somebody, and this can work in the other direction too, if you've hurt somebody or discourage somebody, but either way, our actions change the world. It's like the butterfly effect, because if you've encouraged somebody or, spoken into their life, then that person's life has changed. And if their life has changed, then that's going to affect the world around them, and stuff. So anyways, that's the way that I choose to look at it. It's like you change. It's like in Schindler's List, you save one life, you save the world entire, and stuff. But yeah, so I've had a lot of fun, coming up with movies. And I was talking with somebody, I think I was talking with my roommate about how, if I wanted my blog to be big and impressive and, attractive to tons and tons of people, then I probably would have chosen different movies. I mean, sure, the majority of the movies are from the 80s that are on the blog, and the majority of them are movies that I just like personally. And, I could have gone with brand new movies or more Marvel movies or things that more people are going to relate to. But I just would kind of pray and just be like, God, what movie do you want me to put on the blog now? And so a lot of them are kind of obscure, like Something Wicked This Way Comes, or this documentary on the town of Gander in Newfoundland, which was like a 9/11 documentary, and
Oh, The Come From Away.
It's such a great movie.
That's a great Broadway. I mean, I saw the Broadway show and it was fantastic.
It's a really good Broadway show. But this is an extremely hard to find documentary that the Broadway show is based on. And in a nutshell, it's about how I think it was like 37 planes that were flying internationally got diverted to the town of Gander, which is a town of 7,000 people. And it's the north
on 9/11.
Yeah, on 9/11. It's the most northeastern point.
That's the 7.
Yeah, it's the most northeastern point in the in the North America. And so all of these international flights got diverted there. And so this town of 7,000 people hosted 9,000 people for like, I don't know, a week or something. And they put them up in their own houses.
It was a long time, yeah.
They put them up in their own houses. They threw birthday parties for people. Like it was incredible. It was such a good movie. So it just makes me cry seeing like the beauty of the human heart and, what it can do. So I was glad to put that one on there. But yeah, so if I wanted my blog to be big and amazing and get in all kinds of, like hits and stuff like that, sure, I could have chosen different movies. But I went with what God was speaking to me about. And if it speaks to one other person, that's great. Like maybe it won't speak to anybody right now. Maybe I won't know until later, but I've enjoyed doing it and I've had a lot of fun. And I hope that people, are just encouraged. I just hope people are encouraged and it helps them fine tune their spiritual eyes so that they can see stuff that God shows them in movies too, And I like doing the Facebook group. The Facebook group is a lot of fun because, I've got the movie trailer Mondays and the trivia Tuesdays and the wordy Wednesdays. And then when we do stuff, I have a fellowship in film Friday and stuff. So I have a lot of fun doing that. That's just a way to connect with other like movie nerdy people like me.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for coming on and being faithful through all the persistence of the glitches and the jagged internet, frozen computer, whatever was happening.
It's the Terminators, man.
We fought off the MCP.
It's Terminators.
We got to be ready for when the Terminators take over the world.
It's true. That's why I love Sarah Connor, man. See, going back to the beginning, man. We're going back to the beginning. Our very first podcast, Terminator.
That's right. And so all you guys on Facebook, thanks for commenting. It's so much more fun when we have people and talking. And I mean, it's fun to begin with, but it's a lot more fun when people are making comments and making me laugh all the time on here.
And Paul has someone to talk to when I get
appreciate
booted.
Your input. Right? Brian was like, hang in there, buddy. You're doing great. Like, this is a long monologue. Yeah. But so thanks again, Sarah, for coming on, talking about Tron. Maybe we will get you doing a movie that was made in this millennium at some point.
We'll get there. Someday I'll run out of 80s movies.
I think your list actually had a couple more recent movies.
It did.
There,
I put Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That would be good.
That's right. That was a fantastic movie. In my travels to Uganda, I watched like 10 movies. My favorites were RRR.
Yeah.
movie. It is
That
awesome.
one best
And
original
the
song.
Fablemans.
Oh, the Fablemans was good. I liked Fablemans.
Yes. Yeah, that was, so those were my two favorite. RRR was the best. But so that's the plug. I can't wait. We're gonna have to do that one on the podcast.
Oh,
at
I'll
some
have to
point.
watch it.
Yeah, you definitely need to watch it.
Cool beans.
So this has been Paul McDonald and Sarah Daniels talking about Tron back in 1982. So we hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?